problema doon sa saksakan. Pero the technical, naayos lang nila. 2 minutes. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the International Bridging Leadership Colloquium. And to start our event for today, can we ask everyone to please stand up for the prayer? And to lead us in prayers, Mr. Musa Salingala.
Akala rabukum uduni astajiblakum amin rabbil alamin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Arrahmanirrahim. Malik yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alaihim ghairil maghdubi alaihim waladhdallin. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Praise be to God, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, the most gracious, the most merciful, the master of the day of judgment. Only thee do we worship, and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight path, the path of those on who has bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. Amen.
Kindly remain standing for the doxology in the national anthem.
Tired of weaving dreams too loose for me to wear. Tired of watching clouds repeat their dance on air. Tired of getting tired to doing what's required. Is life for me routine in the greater scheme of things? Through with taking roads someone else designed, through with chasing stars that soon forget to shine, through with going through one more day. What's new? Does my life still mean a thing in the greater scheme of things? I think I'll follow the voice that calls within. Dance to the silent song it sings. I hope to find my place, so my life will fall in place. I know in time I'll find my place in the greater scheme of things. Each must go his way, but how can I decide which path I should take? Who will be my guide? I need some kind of star to lead me somewhere far, to find a higher dream in the greater scheme of things. The road before me bends. I don't know what I'll find. Will I meet a friend or ghost I've left behind? Should I even be surprised that you're with me in disguise? For it's your hand I have seen follow the voice that calls within. Dance to the silent song it sings. I hope to find my place, so my life will fall in place. I know in time I'll find my place. For yours is the voice in my deepest dream. You are the heart, the very heart of the greatest scheme of things. So here I'll follow the voice that calls within. Dance to the silent song it sings. I hope to find my place, so my life will fall in place. I know in time I'll find my place. Follow the voice that calls within. Dance to the silent song it sings. One day we'll find our place, for all things fall in place, for all things have all place, in the greater scheme of things.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiin. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bughaw, may dilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng walhati pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pag may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
We can all take our seat, please. And to welcome us to today's event, let's welcome our host, the president of Film Life Foundation, Mr. Max Ventura.
Magandang umaga. Pleasant good morning to my fellow leaders and to our distinguished guests from government, private sector, and civil society. This is the day has finally happened. It's here. On behalf of our Board of Trustees and our Chairman, Ariel G. Cantos, I would like to welcome all of you to this meeting of the minds for the next 2 days. Philam Foundation is pleased to lend our support to the Bridging Leadership International Colloquium, together with the Asian Institute of Management, Synergos, Team Energy, and Zwilig Family Foundation. We are really eager to explore its application and value to our organization, as well as to our advocacies in Philam Foundation, and not to mention its role as an important tool for nation building. Being a novice at Bridging Leadership at this point, and having been a Jesuit novice seminarian at one point in my life, I cannot help but think of the parable of the soil, no? When we looked at what we were supposed to do today. Many years ago, Synergos had planted the seeds of Bridging Leadership led by Miss Peggy Dulaney, who was herself inspired by her father's brand of Bridging Leadership. And As in the parable, some of the BL seeds fell on the barren pathway and withered and were quickly eaten by the birds. Some BL seeds fell on rocky ground where it did not have much soil and it immediately sprang up but did not take root and withered away as well. Other BL seeds fell into good soil and produced grain, growing up and increasing, yielding 30-fold, 60-fold, and 100-fold. Those seeds that fell on fertile soil took root and blossomed, none more so than in the Philippines. And this is thanks to the pioneering efforts of Professors Ernie Garilao, Titong Gavino, and Dinky Soliman. And of course, all of you, the many practitioners, BL fellows, and supporters, innovators, and partners through the years. And the rest, as they say, is history. By the way, mine is the abridged version. The long one is in your pamphlet. So we reap what we sow. The BL seeds that were sown has taken root in all of us in varying stages or degrees. We hope to learn from our collective experiences what helped and proved effective in our practices, what were the challenges faced, and how were they surpassed. We will examine how BL has been applied in government, civil society, and the private sector, and then hopefully explore other avenues or pathways for BL to be applied in other aspects of our lives. As I am sure you will agree, it is needed at this point in our country's history, now more than ever, and even perhaps that of the world, where we see more and more leaders who are seemingly antithesis of the bridging leadership principles. To whom much is given, much is expected. If others have fallen into despair given the malevolence in our society, those of us who have had the opportunity to wield bridging leadership should soldier on and be the beacons of hope. In the next 2 days, we can find solace among kindred spirits. We can all take heart that given the wealth of our collective experience, goodwill and spirit of collaboration and cooperation present in this colloquium, we are bound to have a rich and bountiful harvest. Again, welcome and a pleasant day and productive day to all of us. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you, Max. No, that's why we're here, is because of Max. And he did the gospel and the sermon. So I guess he haven't gotten out the hang out of being a Jesuit seminarian. But anyway, welcome everyone. I'm so happy you guys are here. I'm Ricky De Caso. I'm the executive director of Team Energy Foundation. We've been doing this for like 15 years now, through the center when it was started in AIM, the center, and Dinky and the rest of the gang has been doing it like for 2 decades now. And anyway, if I name everyone here is important. So if I start naming every one of you, it's going to take half day. But I'll just announce that we have guests coming from Synergos, New York. I won't tell their names yet as of right now to give you a bit of a surprise later on. But can we ask them to please stand up and welcome them with a good round of applause, please? Straight from New York. Direct flight, 16 hours. No?
If I may, yes.
Yeah, no, not only New York, Ethiopia, Mexico, and Bangladesh. See, so now we're international. And Brazil also. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was thinking of their election, so it skipped my mind. But anyway, welcome everyone. I've never seen. We dreamt about this for 2 decades now. When we started it, we never thought it was going to grow this big. And this was something that we discussed, a small idea that we discussed with some of the fellows 5 years ago. It was actually started by a group of the late Mayor Sonia Lorenzo, si Tedet, I think si Miren, who was used to be with our center, and the center staff at that time, no, si Queenie was one of the original people handling the center at that time, and si attorney Minalang, Malang, no, Malang, I saw him. Where is he? He was the one who gave the original name of this activity, of this gathering, was supposed to be the National Organization of Bridging Leadership, or NOBLE. No, unfortunately, when Mayor Sonia passed away, it kind of got stymied. But here we are, and the dream continues. So again, welcome, and I'm not going to hold you guys. We have a heavy day, and in the history of BL here in the Philippines, it started actually when it became an organization when endowment was given by then Mirant to the team to AIM to establish the Amy Rand Center for Bridging Societal Divides. We changed ownership, so now we're known as Team Energy. It's now the AIM Team Energy Center for Bridging Leadership. Since then, hundreds, thousands of individuals have undergone its training. Hundreds of bridging fellows actually underwent training through the bridging framework. And after that, it was carried on by another organization, the Zwilig Family Foundation, which was able to propagate it even further, no, through the health system of the country in collaboration with the government to the Department of Health. So anyway, to start the story of BL and the AIM and the BL experience, may I call on the Executive Director of the AIM Team Energy Center for Bridging Leadership to tell the story of how BL was born and how it has evolved through the years, Professor Manny De Vera.
Meet Juan. He has lived in a place with challenges such as poverty, armed conflict, lack of proper healthcare, and lack of proper education. Meanwhile, people in another place experience prosperity, peace, good health, and good education. This makes Juan unable to have a decent life, unlike those in another place. This is the nature of social divides. It makes opportunities to achieve one's desired quality of life unequal to different people. But Juan knows of ways to change so that a good life can be within reach for all. But with these challenges usually so complex, how can Juan even begin to make it happen? In facing such challenges, Juan needs to picture a clear goal, find allies to work with, and together create lasting solutions that achieve the change he wants to make. The Bridging Leadership Framework guides us to do just that. With Juan as a bridging leader, he looks into his passion, skills, talents, and network. Juan knows he can be empowered to address the problem and tries to understand the problem's systematic factors. He then develops his personal vision to address the problem. This is the process of deepening his ownership of the challenge. But his work doesn't end there. He can only turn his vision into a reality if he engages various individuals and groups in dialogue. So Juan starts to listen and dialogue with different people and organizations to develop trust with each other and together craft a shared vision. This is the process of building co-ownership. The community and Juan then work together on their shared vision, and they change the way society and institutions work so they co-create a better reality. This is how the Bridging Leadership Framework works. From deepening one's ownership, building co-ownership, to the co-creation of our desired future, every Juan and community can change to bridge the social divides. Now imagine a country or a world without divides, because of thousands or even millions of Juans who are co-creating communities of change. This is the future we aim to see at the AIM Team Energy Center for Bridging Leadership.
Friends and fellow bridging leadership practitioners from government, civil society, the academia, the private sector, good morning to everyone. I was entrusted with this formidable task of condensing the experience of the history and experience of bridging leadership in a few minutes. And so I am from the academe, so forgive me for being long-winded, but I promise you that this will take no less than 30 minutes, okay? No more than 30 minutes, I mean, see? That's a slip already. Okay, the video you just saw encapsulates the three phases of BL, ownership, co-ownership, and co-creation. And we developed this youngish approach with animation as a center. In 2014, embarked on attracting our dear millennials to take on the challenge of becoming bridging leaders. In the last 14 years, we at the AIM Team Area Center for Bridging Leadership have applied the same process we have developed with leaders who could bridge societal divides in the Philippines. It was as we all know, it was in 2002 when Scenarios Institute brought together practitioners from different parts of the world to articulate the BL approach to the development of 20 BL cases, and which was then translated into a paper by Steve Pierce entitled Bridging Differences and Building Collaboration, the Critical Role of Leadership. As you all know, this inspired Professor Gavino and Professor Garilao of AIM to continue the research and application of BL. And with the generous support of Mirant Philippines, now Team Energy Foundation, the center was established in 2004. The Center for Bridging Social Divides, now known as Team Energy Center for Bridging Leadership, has since hosted the growth and development of the BL framework in its real-world applications. We thank the Team Energy Foundation for its generous endowment and currently its support for the center in funding three strategic functions of the center, which are the center's 5-year research agenda, which is systematically derived from its capacity building experiences which aims to validate and enrich bridging leadership as a leadership framework, measure impact in different communities, and develop learning materials such as our Bridging Leadership Index, and which will not translate into what we call our Bridging Leadership Handbook. Number two would be capacity building, where the center uses a generative approach in capacity building, and where tools and concepts are enriched by the combined expertise of our experience and expertise of its bridging leaders. And finally, community engagement, where the center's alumni and its stakeholders establish and co-create communities of change through knowledge sharing and partnerships. In our 14th year, I'm very pleased to share with you some significant milestones we've attained towards our vision of creating a society without divides. This include over 4,000 individuals trained through public and customized executive BL programs, 7 fellowships, conducted capacitating over 100 BL fellows, over 80 communities with varying degrees of social change outcomes facilitated, and 7 BL books published. Since 2011, the center has collaborated with AIM Zulig's School of Development Management, or ZSDM, in integrating BL as a core course in the Master of Development Management program. As such, Bridging Leadership has also served as a degree program's framework in capacitating our development managers here and all over Asia. Our MDM graduates from India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Lao PDR, Indonesia, Myanmar, East Timor, Vietnam, Cambodia have all shared with us how they share BL framework as a way of thinking to lead change in their communities and organizations, especially in dealing with their own wicked problems. In 2015, the Leadership and Management of Change executive course of AIM was redesigned to adopt the BL framework and consequently has been renamed as the Leadership and Management of Change, the Bridging Leadership Approach. The center has since collaborated with the Zulik School of Development Management in promoting and administering this course for NGOs, international NGOs, public sector executives, and for those private sector executives as well who are involved in complementing public service delivery. The center also has an ongoing collaboration with AIM School of Executive Education, where we have designed and delivered customized programs for local government executives of Makati and Manila on issues such as disaster risk management, safe city spaces, youth development programs, and housing, all using the BL as an ethos and as a way of thinking on how our public officials can co-create change in their respective communities. The center has also customized BL programs for the Department of Labor and Employment, the Philippine Air Force, and with the Department of Education, the country's biggest bureaucracy, which has entrusted the center in developing customized BL programs for different regions where DepEd operates. We cannot thank our BL Fellow and DepEd Undersecretary Lorenadino enough for leading and growing this partnership with the center to where it is right now. We are proud to be in the company of our BL Fellows, who through their successes have proven that the BL framework is a process worth emulating. And I'll mention some of them who are here currently. From the military sector, we have Charlie Galvez, Colonel Hao, Bim Quemado. From the education sector, we have Lorna Dino. From the IP sector, Fred Basino, Chai Canoy, and Musang Sangila. From the NGO, Ayi Hernandez and De Suasito. From local governance, we have Jun Pacalyoga, Secretary Jehan Mitin, Secretary Myra Mangkabong. Youth sector, we have Paulo Gico, Adam Anay, Alex Badia, and Joshua Misa. And from the business sector, we have Edwin Tol, Michael Lim, and also Ding Ferrer. Also from local governance, we have Allen Minalang as well. Part of the center's growth to date involves a recognition that leaders are faced with nuanced and contextual challenges. As such, we have developed what we call based and sector-tailored executive programs, such as our ongoing engagement with the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, where BL is now the guiding framework in creating and mobilizing integrity circles in select provinces and cities for good governance. The same goes for our fellowships, such as the World Bank Mindanao BL Leaders Program, the Islamic Leadership Development Program, as well as a host of public and customized programs. A current example is our Future Bridging Leadership Program.
The great thing a little lamb can do, which the big sun cannot do, is give light at night. It shows us that no one is superior by size, but by purpose. If we cannot do great things, we can surely do small things in a great way, because little things make a big difference to God.
As a BL, you inspire continuous learning within your community.
There is hope. There is hope that there will be that peace. Peace with freedom and justice.
Remember, this program is a development program. We have to develop your leadership in groups as well. If, for example, since you are so passionate about your individual projects, ayaw nyo mag-give in sa group, then you are starting to fail already. Part of good leadership is also good followership.
The most important lesson that I gained from this workshop is that a real leader becomes insignificant at the end of the day.
So putting the community first before the projects that you want to implement.
It all starts from being selfless.
Because you cannot be there all the time to help them.
It's not about us anymore. It's about the need of the community that we really want to address.
You don't have to wait to be someone to change the world. That sometimes by changing those around you, changing your community, the world will follow.
Today is a special day, not just because of the center's historic 10-year run, 10 years plus one, but we also reaffirm our commitment to become a more effective institution for bridging publics and communities, bridging the sectors, government, private sector, and civil society, and most of all, bridging hopes and fears. Let's give Team Energy a warm round of applause.
Thanks to BL, I lost my journey because my journey became ours.
The thing that I will remember most would probably be the friendship between my fellows.
With like-minded individuals who have so much passion about their communities. And also
The speakers who have shared their thoughts and learning.
And their passion that drives me more to do my passion as well in my own device.
Development poses a critical need now more than ever. The opportunity to take part in building spaces where are continually recognized, honed, and supported as vital players, our partners in making valuable and sustainable changes for the future become a responsibility of the present. Thus, in the center's mission to develop being leaders forefront of addressing complex societal divides in the communities in the Philippines and in Asia, the FBLP or the Future Bridging Leaders Program has been created to enable the Filipino youth to proactively participate in their community's development towards a brighter and more hopeful future. Finally, we would like to share with you our upcoming fellowship programs and capacity building workshops as we to co-create communities of change. We have the Bridging Leaders Initiative for Sustainability and Social Resilience Fellowship Program. The center aims to develop and implement the BLISS, as how, this is how we call it, in 2019, which targets to capacitate local government executives or governors of the poorest provinces in the Philippines in building and innovating entrepreneurial ecosystems of their localities to maximize their community's resources and potential for growth. The LGU executives will be paired with enterprises or businesses that have technology. Current pool of these enterprises includes the emerging idea space startups, which have implemented innovative business models in the countryside. In a study by Brookings Institution in 2017, the Philippines Gini coefficient shot up shot up to as high as 60% from the current estimate of just over 40%. The widening gap between the richest and the poorest communities in the Philippines creates an opportunity from technopreneurs by bridging them to the power bearers of these localities. In the BLISS Fellowship Program, key stakeholders will be tapped once the change prototype in the province gains momentum and potential. It also allows the community to solidify ownership on the ecosystem-based enterprises that will emerge from the program. Moreover, the center and its partners will provide modules developed with select entrepreneurs to focus on identifying the problem of creating value and unlocking value in these localities, side with the issue of product development, logistics, and marketing. Another program that we will launch this next year would be the Agriculture Bridging Leaders Program. This is upon the initiative of Cargill Philippines in keeping the food and agricultural system robust. This program aims to capacitate the Filipino youth to become effective catalysts of change to sustain Philippine agriculture. Cargill Philippines has invited the center to design and implement a fellowship program for youth leaders in the agricultural sector with the objective of developing an ecosystem that will fortify young people's capacity as leaders of the emergent future of agricultural development. This program also aims to incubate change projects that significantly contribute to improving food security and nutrition, poverty reduction, employment generation, sustainable management resources, and mitigating climate change. The, as we call it, the ABLP is designed to be a year-long intensive fellowship program and will begin by May 2019. We also have the BL for DepEd Youth Leaders. Following the success of the BL workshops with DepEd's middle managers and superintendents across regions, the BL Central Office invited the center to design and implement a program for their junior staff who are aimed to be future leaders of the education sector. Starting in June of next year, the 6-month intensive leadership program is envisioned to incubate change projects and innovate the process in DepEd through the AIM Center. We at the center and AIM will continue to expand the knowledge and evidence-based research for bridging leadership. We have embarked on the development of the Bridging Leadership Index while continuing to produce papers and cases documenting BL practices and successes. It is important for us to recognize that the success of the BL practice will not have been made possible without the commitment and dedication of our academic partners who have been our invaluable research and training partners. And they are the Ateneo de Zamboanga University. They're here. Thank you. The Xavier University Ateneo de Cagayan, the Ateneo de Davao University, the Mindanao State University, Iligan Institute of Technology, the MSU Santos, Mindanao State University, Notre Dame University Sulu, University of Southern Mindanao Cabacan, and the Davao Medical School Foundation. We are committed to continue to be a resource to all BR practitioners in the Philippines and beyond. We also look forward to learning from our experiences and collaborating for a future that we all aspire for. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, Professor Manny. So as mentioned, there are so many fellows here from batch 1, 2, 3, the MBLP fellowship, the Zwillig Bridging Leadership Training Program. And now to give the story of one of the organizations who really propagated the practice of the BL all the way down to the grassroots is I'd like to call the father of bridging leadership in the Philippines. And recently won the David Rockefeller Award for Bridging Leadership with Secretary Dicky Soliman, Professor Ernie Garilao.
I'm not the father, I'm the grandfather. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Um, Let me all welcome you here. Peggy Dulaney is not yet around, but let me just make this spiel. Sometime in 1997, Peggy Dulaney wrote a prescient article on bridging leaders. And at that time, she already identified that a complex and a more inequitable world needed a different kind of a leader. And at that time, she was already mentioning, she already termed it as a bridging leader. And from 1997, emerged a 2-year global research program of Synergos, looking at the phenomenon of a bridging leader. What are the qualities of the bridging leader? And what is that phenomenon is all about? And after the 2-year program, as Mark said, we were around 8 countries, 8 seeds, and the different seeds were planted in different countries. And some of them we will hear of that tomorrow. So let me just thank Peggy, who will soon be here, for being the guiding light of all these things. All right. In 20,000, Synergos invited AIM to participate in this global research program. I was to be there with Secretary Dinky, but unfortunately, she was named to government. So Titong came along with me to South Africa to do the research. Leadership case studies were written. As a matter of fact, 8 were written in the Philippines. And the participants were encouraged to test the case studies in pilot seminars. So we did the first AIM workshop on bridging leadership sometime in 2001. And I must say that a lot of the support given to the AIM really came from Miran Foundation and later on with the Team Energy Foundation. It was on the 3rd workshop that the bridging leadership framework emerged. And we have the, no, previous to that. This one. So that emerged in the 3rd workshop, sometimes in 201. And this is now the workshop, and this is now the framework that continues to be used. So you take a look at the ownership, co-ownership, and co-creation. And you also would realize what are the elements of the different segments of the bridging leadership framework. And you will see that I always say here framework, as it gets cascaded into practice, people do the plus or minus. They add or they subtract. They enhance or they reduce, given the different customization of the program. It was developed within the context of addressing wicked inequities and complexities. It was developed primarily because of societies with great inequities and complexities. And it made sense in the year 2000. So poverty incidence was high. There were other complex issues like poor governance, low development indicators, persistent peace and order issues. However, the application then was tailored for leaders who can address challenges faced by their immediate communities, resulting in improved development outcomes. It was not geared for whole systems change because some of the practitioners looked at it as whole system change. But it was geared primarily for leaders who face challenge in their immediate communities and resulting in development outcomes. And it was really biased towards outcomes. If you take a look at the challenges, what is the outcome? And the outcome must be manifested in terms of better improvement in terms of the development indicators of the population. In my 8 years in bridging leadership at AIM, the BL framework made sense to a leader, made most sense, most practical sense, to a leader with an organization, resources, and a time frame to address critical issues and the challenges consistent with his or her personal purpose and organizational mandate. This is most clear in the case of Mayor Sonia Lorenzo, the late Mayor Sonia Lorenzo of San Isidro, who belonged to the first cohort. She had firm grasp of concepts and application on ownership, co-ownership, and co-creation. She got her own bureaucracy, internal bureaucracy, including barangay captains at that time, to undergo BL training to ensure co-ownership of the challenges. And later on came up with new institutional arrangements to improve the development status of her constituents. She reported better health services, better health indicators, as well as increases in income of their constituents. I tell the story of the late Mayor Sonia because this influenced the work that we did with the Zwillig Family Foundation starting in 2008. In 2008, we embarked on a new mission of health for the poor. I was asked to explore action to address health inequities as a result of a fragmented system brought about by the devolution of 1991. The recommendation at that time was to work with local chief executives, mayors, since they control health services in the rural health units or village health stations where the poor go. You want to improve health of the poor, you improve the rural health system because that's where the poor go. But in 2008, working with local government was not a preferred option. It was counterintuitive, but strategic. It had risks, but it can be mitigated. And the assumption at that time was that there were many Mayor Sonias in the local government landscape. We introduced the health change model, which stated that to have better health outcomes, the community must have access to health services brought about by a responsive health system made possible by a leader. So when you take a look at it, it follows the framework. The leader, how does he improve the system? And how does the system produce better health outcomes of the constituents? And the framework at that time was patterned after the BL Fellowship at AIM. And the methodology of that really came from the Masters in Entrepreneurship Training of Professor Morato at AIM, which gave you the training, practicum, and you will not get your master's degree until such time as you would have met your financial indicators targets insofar as your entrepreneurship is concerned. Since 2008, the BL Health Change Model has been introduced to 774 municipalities, or practically one-half the municipalities, 52 provinces, 20 of which were with their governors, and 12 of the 16 regional directors and their staff. So as you can see, the Zwillig Family Foundation worked primarily with the health sector, and the footprint of the intervention had an impact insofar as the ecosystem is concerned. So given the 10-year experience, how has the BL framework and its subsequent innovations been applied to public health. The first one is establishing the proof of concept. Does it work? Does it produce outcomes? Are people's health better with the application of the bridging leadership? So we designed the BL-based Health Leaders for the Poor program, which equipped the mayor in the understanding the health system inequities. So first of all, you understand what that inequities is all about. What is your role in that inequity? And in many instances, you have to see to it that you are part of the inequitable system that produces poor health indicators. And how do you gather your bureaucracy and your external stakeholder to co-own the health inequity and co-own the preferred health reality, or the principle of co-ownership? And lastly, how do you come up with an equitable health system? From 2008 to 2013, we ran 9 cohorts of 72 municipalities. And the first one was the introduction of the health scorecard in the BL co-creation process. The mayors had no problems with ownership and co-ownership. As a matter of fact, the ownership deepened their own commitment for public service. And in the co-ownership phase, they realized that they cannot do it alone. How do they mobilize their own bureaucracy to share the same vision? And how do they mobilize their other stakeholders, their outside stakeholders, to in fact share the same vision? But they had difficulties with the co-creation. And in 2011, we introduced the health system scorecard. And we said, if you want to take a look at having a responsive health system, these are the elements of the responsive health system. So you have, it has to do with governance, financing, manpower, medicines, information systems, and the delivery of health services. In many instances, this is the first time they see what the whole system is all about. And the next thing that they see is that what is the assessment, what is the current assessment of the system, and how do I improve the system? Mayors are not interested, mayors are interested in templates that they can follow, plus or minus. They have no time to recreate everything, or their staff has no time to recreate everything. One time I asked the municipal health, hindi nyo ba pa pwedeng gawin to? Of course, if it needs time. Sir, pwede namin gawin niya, pero nakalinya yung 20 people outside looking for looking for consultation. No? So basically, wala kang masyadong. And the scorecard indicators were color-coded according to status. Green meaning targets are achieved, yellow partially achieved, and red below targets. And local executives do not like reds. They like greens. They say, bakit red yan? How do I make it green? That's the first phase. The next phase is they become more discriminating. Of all the elements of the scorecard, what is most important that we have to address? Let me give you an example of Mayor Sulong of Lapuyan, Zamboanga del Sur. She joined the program in 2008. The assessment was all red. Over 2 years, you had already greens. And if you can see, starting in 2011, you see the drastic change in the indicators. From 6 to 0, infant deaths down the way, and then you now say that skilled birth attendant, facility-based delivery really went up. And this is an IP-dominated community. And then when you ask her, but dalawa? You see, sometimes you ask, you have a system, how come you still have 2 deaths there? And they can explain it. And these were deliveries made from the citizen from outside, normally from Manila, transients coming in, and they slip through the cracks and they deliver at home, and if they're high risk, then they have deaths, etc., etc. The next one is the 72 municipalities. So we tracked down the performance of the 72 municipalities for that period. And the experience of Lapuyan was likewise manifested in these municipalities. So this is a cumulative assessment of the 72 municipalities, baseline, ending, and you see the drop in the maternal deaths, and the increase primarily because they improved facilities-based delivery, they improved skilled birth attendant, and as well as early identification of pregnant mothers, provision of pre- and postnatal care, provision of reference services, etc., etc. Now, we do not claim causal relationship between GFF intervention and maternal death reaction. You cannot, because it needs research, it needs statistics, and even if you do research, the control group is already contaminated. No? Puro na BL na sila lahat. So hindi mo na malaman kung you cannot find any more communities with no BL. Rather, we claim that the mayors provide the leadership that improve the health systems. So it's the acts of leadership of mayors that improve the system, that improve better health outcomes. So what are the learnings from the 72? Mayors, in fact, can be champions for health, provided they know the system and they know what they have to do to improve the outcomes. Embrace the ownership and embrace the co-ownership, and you'll get the outcomes. They also need an easy-to-understand scorecard with corresponding leadership acts to improve health systems. And as they transform their health systems, they need coaching and mentoring. He said, as we transform our systems, we need someone to help guide us in the process, because we're doing it for the first time. And finally, they can be integrators of the local health systems. So I invite you to the panel of the mayors. I think we have some mayors here, and they will share with you what they have done with the program. The next one is scaling up the health change model with the Department of Health. The initial results opened the opportunity for upscaling with the Department of Health in 2013. Secretary Ona asked us, can you transfer the approach to DOH and work with the government priority for municipalities? And for us bridging leadership practitioners, this is really a great opportunity to move the BL-based health system model to the mainstream. But you must have proof of concept. You must have the evidence. You must have the methodology. You must have the technology. However, as I said, it was with great risks, especially if you move it to an executive department, because the innovation is being introduced from the top by a politically appointed secretary whose tenure dependent on the pleasure of the president. It may be the secretary, but he might be gone tomorrow. So what happens to the intervention? And that the innovation was coming from the outside. And therefore, in bureaucracies, intervention coming from the outside attracts internal resistance. But to reduce the risk, we ensured that DOH ownership of the program, and that the program was entirely co-created with DOH. And I mean entirely co-created with DOH. There was nothing that was unilaterally introduced. And if there was resistance or objections from DOH, it just had to be addressed, or it had to be postponed for a while until there was mutual agreement to proceed. The partnership with DOH facilitate innovations. A BL competency system was developed. So this is now the time, because primarily they kept on saying, ano ba yung BL? How do I know na BL ba talaga yan? O, ano ba yung indicators niyan? Etc. etc. A system was developed to provide rigor in the implementation and was aligned in DOH direction of competency-based training programs. So in a sense, the innovation was also coming from DOH primarily because their training programs was now competency-based. So let me just guide you through a series of slides. First of all, you have this. BL framework. All right. BL framework. Yeah. Yeah. All right. This is your BL framework, right? There are the elements of the BL framework. The second slide shows. Second slide, please. The second slide translates the BL elements into competencies. All right, so we partner with Human Capital Asia to be able to do this, and you say, all right, if these are the elements, what are the competencies at the ownership segment? And this was arrived at by taking a look at all the documents of the BL case studies, as well as interviews with the BL practitioners, and they came up that in terms of the ownership, you really need 4 competencies: personal mastery, thinking strategically, problem solving, decision making on health challenges. Initially, they started off with 12 competencies, but eventually became reduced to 9. Because 12 competencies is too complicated and 9 competencies is already a lot. So when the BL competencies emerged, all right, so you now have the next step into core behavior. All right, what is the core behavior element behind the competency? All right, so if your competency is modeling personal mastery, your core behavior is you develop, articulate, and align a personal vision to health. You are ambiguous in, you're resilient in ambiguous situations. And basically, finally, integrity, commitment to the truth. So you look for the behavior, you look for the acts of leadership in terms of the behavior, and you can make an assessment whether he is beginner, capable, competent, or exemplar. And that's the dictionary. So to look at the element, look at the competency, look at the core behavior, and based on the act of leadership, is he beginner, capable, competent, or exemplar? And what we want to do is at the end of the program, they are at least capable and competent. All right, so having said that, we now move to the fact that over time, it is no longer training, but it is leadership development. So that since you are having the participants over a period of time, you are looking at the whole issue of a learning and development framework. So the introduction of BL competencies added more rigor to the leadership formation and the practice of bridging leadership. The program subscribes to the principle that maximal learning and development is achieved by formal training, 10%. So yung formal face-to-face is just 10%. Your 20% is social learning through coaching, mentoring, and peer learning. But the 70% is really in the experiential learning through on-the-job application. So, kung training lang, 10%. So if you want to have the maximum learning, you need to do training, coaching, and on-the-job practice, which really contributes to the practice of leadership. So if you have that, then you now say, how am I going to develop the competencies? And from the competencies, what are the acts of leadership that I have to do based on the competencies that will now change my local health system from non-responsive to responsive, and that you will now have the outputs of increased utilization of health services by the community and better health outcomes. So you now have the lay of the land, wherein you now develop the competencies as a result of training, coaching, and practice, and they are able to do acts of leadership that will transform the health system. And a transformed system means better utilization of health services by the constituents, and as a result of that, better health outcomes. So you can have your system all green, but you will now relate whether that green system results in better health outcomes. And if your better health outcomes does not emerge from a green system, then something has to be done. Okay. With the leadership formation program, then you now do a curriculum pathway. All right? Now, what we now do is that in the whole system, whether it be a ZFF staff or a academic partner or DOH or local governments, you go through the same pathway. So the first one is really your core courses. All right? So if you're able to do your core courses, you will have the basic competencies of a bridging leadership, of a bridging leader. For some of the stakeholders, they go through deepening courses, especially with reference to academic partners. All right? Or especially with reference to senior ZFF staff. All right? So you have the deepening courses, and then you go through certification programs. If you are a trainer, much better to go through a BL trainer certification program. And later on, do a BL coach certification program. So it's really professionalizing the competencies of the leadership needed by the system. All right. So the next one is, how is this applied? All right. Those of you who know me, I put the world in one page. I put the world in one page, and it is much appreciated by the practitioners because they see the world in one page. So, so you know, this was done for the director. So basically, 3 module. So director, this is a 3 module program. You have to go through this, etc., etc. In terms of the competencies, this is how to lay it out. In terms of the acts of leadership, the same thing. And in terms of your scorecard, it will look something like this. Some people don't like it, no? Because you template it. But I always say, you template it plus or minus. You customize it plus or minus, depending on your situation. But you now have a working guide, which will save you a lot of time if you are going to do it alone. Or if you're going to do it alone, you'll never finish it. The next one is that, next. The next one is that we did some elements of laying out the competencies and whether in fact these competencies can be translated in how they institutionalize the BL-based leadership program in their own regions. All right, so we make the assumption that the higher the competency, the more they're able to do the, uh, the, the acts of leadership that will do the system. And then the next slide really just shows you, having seen that, does it show in indicators? All right? Because at the end of the day, you make investments are made on competency building, and the payoffs are in the outcomes, output and outcomes. So that was in terms of the DOH regional system. The next one is, all right, so it gained traction in the selected regions. One region is the region of Asek Dumama, there. And the chart shows that improvements in the competencies, the added value to them was really in the co-ownership. Oftentimes in public service, there is no issue on ownership. Because if you have an issue on ownership, they will not stay long owning public service. The challenge was on co-ownership. How do you get your internal bureaucracy to share with you the common, the shared vision and the shared outcomes, as well as the other stakeholders? All right. The next one is, this is now with reference to the governors. All right. There are just 2 modules. All right. It is a 1-day face-to-face, and a lot of it is really in terms of the, in terms of the acts of leadership. The same thing. No, I will not go through that. The next slide also gives you an idea of the competencies. So with reference to regional directors or with governors, since they are public leaders to begin with, it does not take long to address the competencies. But there are some competencies that they need to develop. Public leaders tend to be directive. So the whole issue of coaching and mentoring is a skill to be addressed. Or coming up with innovations is also something that they would have to address, primarily because they really bring down canned programs. But look at the results. All right, basically that. A drop in maternal mortality, which is a big drop on a year basis, and a drop in infant mortality, which is also big. At the end of 2 years, are we saying that because of this, this is the result? No. But what we're saying is there is something happening that will have to be explained because the drops are drastic. And the best thing to find out is whether, in fact, what is it in terms of 2018 on the third one. So I think what is happening is that you're now saying, all right, you go through the process, but at the end of the process, what is the impact on the constituents? If you're in health, health indicators. If you're in agriculture, agriculture indicators, etc., etc. Next. All right, all right, the third one is really increasing the institutional capacity to do training of bridging leaders. And this we share with Manny De Vera. When we did scaling up, it was essential that we identify with DOH universities and colleges that can partner with DOH regional offices in providing BL-based health leadership and governance training for officials. And the objective is not just to have faculty trained in BL, but academic institutions which have integrated bridging leadership in their academic and extension courses, applicable not only to mayors and governors, but to a wider community of social development leaders and advocates. The academic partners likewise have a scorecard. The next one, please. And this is their scorecard. You look at level 1, level 2, and level 3. If you're at level 3, you have at least 10 faculty members trained to do practically all of the BL-based training programs. And that you're able to address this. And the intention here is really to get the regional academic institutions with the capacity to do BL-based training programs for local government so that they don't have to go to Manila. Yeah? So if you're talking, you're really democratizing the technology. In the process of doing the training, and this is the added value of the academic partners, collectively developed an approach to teach BL to practitioners. It is integrative approach to learning, both theory and practice. It combines transdisciplinary work, contextualized learning, design is innovative and emerging, transformation, accountability, process-oriented. And these are really the academic partners. And over time, in fact, they have become strategic partners for other agencies. So you see them training for the Office of the Vice President, the Department of the SWD, the National Resiliency Council, Department of Education, etc., etc. So if you want to mainstream bridging leadership, you really need to have institutions in the region that provides it competently and making it available to the regional institution. So finally, I say bridging leadership, local governments, and development outcomes. We have seen bridging leadership gaining traction among local chief executives, mayors, and governors. Bridging leadership deepened their commitment to improve the development condition of their constituencies, etc. In the case of public health, we see the growing synergy of convergence between DOH and local governments around integrated provincial health systems. Both share the same leadership frame and the language of ownership, co-ownership, and co-creation. As a matter of fact, when you go to assemblies of local governments, you hear ownership, co-ownership, and co-creation. You just have to trace where they got the ownership, co-ownership, and co-creation. Since with the approval of the Universal Healthcare Bill, which integrates health system at the provincial level, the role of the governor as the provincial health champion and integrator will be strengthened, and as a result, faster emergence of better health outcomes. And the PLGP program has become an incubator program for a national rollout. So we invite you also to attend the governor's panel. Finally, let me cite the case of Mayor Coro, who's here. He'll probably be embarrassed if but I like stories. I like apocryphal stories. Elected in 2010, he joined the Health Leadership for the Poor in 2012. By 2015, he was reporting better health indicators. But he used the approach in introducing other innovations. He influenced the status of the education implementation, primary, secondary level. And by 2014, his town was cited as the best literacy and education system in the region. He also introduced mangrove management and social tourism. Introduced zero cutting of mangrove, which affected the lives of the fisher folk, but they moved into social tourism, ecotourism, social tourism with the community through a process of co-ownership and co-creation. And as a result, from zero, you now have 100 banca operators, you have 10 homestays, You have 20 vans and visits to their lagoon of 700 to 1,000 daily. He also introduced the whole issue of uh, fisheries protection that now increases fish stocks, etc., etc. He reports that incomes. He reports that the income of the fisher folk sector has increased from around 2,000 monthly to around 8 to 10,000 monthly, and reports a reduction of the poverty incidence from 60% in 2010 to 41% by 2018. If you have reductions like that, you should be president. These claims have to be validated, but more and more these stories are being told. More and more of these stories are being told, especially within the context of the BL framework. But the story, but the story can be translated into a modified development model, and its proof of concept established. This is not surprising. After all, no, BL has begun to move its influence from health to the development landscape at the local government level. This is not surprising because, as mentioned by Max, this is not surprising. After all, since the promise of BL, since this was the promise of BL when it was seeded in the Philippines in 2000. Thank you and good morning to all.
Thank you, Prof. Ernie, the grandfather of the bridging leadership practice in the Philippines. So you see, there you go. That's patikim yan. Oh, we have guests here, the patikim. Whetting your appetite for more. Huh? All of us here, we have our stories. No, before I go there, Mayor Coro just informed me when we were talking that he was instrumental in penning the story of the movie Siargao. No, and he was that short, no, becoming the getting the leading role from the lead actor. Konti na lang, no. He wasn't allowed by his wife because Anyway, it's a joke, but that's true. He was part of that. So anyway, we have so many stories, and even we were trying to craft the strategy of how to do this. We were deciding between sectoral approach or issue approach. But if it's issue approach, we have like thousands of issues here nowadays. So we decided let's do the sectoral first. So it means not going to end here. We start with the sectoral, then we go to the issues. Then it's going to have several series of summits wherein each and everyone will present your story. Because we have to write a book if everyone's going to tell your story here. I was thinking of a title, something like Lord of the Rings, no? Parang the Lord of the BL Framework, the Fellowship of Bridging Leaders. Huh? Yeah. So anyway, the next part of we're going to have the sessions, no, the breakout sessions are going to be parallel sessions because we have too many stories. We have five sectors. No, we have the civil society organizations, the mayors, the governors. We have the academic practitioners. If you want to know more about the research, you're going to be a research breakout to discuss researches done on the bridging leadership. So you can take your pick. But to start it off, we're going to have two sessions parallel. One is going to be with by the governors. The other one is going to be with civil society practitioners. So we're going to do one practice that we bridging leaders always do towards the end, and we're going to collaborate. So how are we going to do that? We're going to divide this room into two session rooms, huh? And it's magic. That's why we wanted to have done here in the Tower Club. Like the two towers, Lord of the Ringy type of a story here. No? But anyway, we're going to take like 10 to 12 minutes to divide this. You can take your break. When you come back, you can choose which session to join. You want to hear the story of the governors, as mentioned by Prof. Ernie, wonderful stories, and the stories of civil society, wonderful stories as well. The governors here, civil society will be on the other side of the Red Sea. Okay. The governors is going to be that side, It's going to be handled by the great Ai Hernandez from Balay Mindanao. And this side is by the great Doc Tim. Doc Tim is going to handle this, right? The session for the governors. So, you know, you're going to be divided. No? You might be traversing between two rivers. Just to announce as well, no? This suggestion came from none other than Prof. Ernie, of all people. He decided on using the LED because we were using the projector, and he said it should be live stream. So you're being live streamed, guys. They'll be flashing the link where they can go to check it out. Can we clear this area in the middle, please, so we can create the session hall? Thank you. Let's collaborate.